And we're live. Welcome back to another Corona Geek, here where we talk all about mobile app development using Corona SDK. I'm your host, Charles McKeever, and today we're joined by a brain trust of developers. It's doing the dog thing. What? I could heard a high-pitched noise. Joining us is Ed Marino from roaminggamer.com. Hey, Ed.
Hola. Hey.
Also joining us is Chris Byerly from coronium.io. or various other properties. And also joining us is Sergey from Russia at, Sergey, what is it? Is it plural or is it singular? Spiral Code Studio. SpiralCodeStudio.com?
Yes, that's right. Spiral Code Studio.
I always want to make it plural because you do so many things.
It's just one studio.
Yeah.
It's just my room.
You're always working in the middle of the night and, you know, all these
I quit this habit. It's not healthy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you should quit that habit. Okay. Well, let's see. We got a lot of stuff to talk about today, so let's get right down to it. First of all, if you didn't already, go back and watch Corona Geek 140. That is where we added memory matching logic to our memory matching game. We did a whole series where we covered how to create a memory matching game. We looked at creating game cards, flipping those cards. Somebody's blinking. Is that me? Blinging. We looked at arranging cards in a grid pattern. Also, we added that memory matching logic so that the cards would you could actually click a card and find a corresponding card that matches and make everything work. So if you haven't checked that out, go do so. There's also a summary blog post over at coronalabs.com where you can find links to everything. Or you can just go to youtube.com/coronageek where we have all the past Corona Geeks, and there's lots of good stuff there as well. We have links to all the show notes that you can find on the Corona Labs site. So go check that out. Today we're going to talk about puzzle pieces. We're going to talk about, if you've ever been, I put this out on social media, if you've ever been puzzled by puzzles, today is going to be a good day for you because we're going to talk about how to create the puzzle pieces, and we're also going to, Ed, are we going to show how to match them so that they interlock, or we're just going to arrange them? I'm not sure if I was clear.
We are going to talk about how you generate the pieces themselves, the shapes, and we're going to talk about the logic that goes with the matching. I can show some code, absolutely, but I think if I just describe it, most people instantly understand how it works. Okay. So why don't we play it by, by ear, and if we need to look at the code, we can do that.
Okay, well that's going to be the gist of it. So if you ever kind of looked at one of those games and scratched your head and said, how do they do that? That's really what we're going to get after. So this isn't going to be an end-to-end discussion where we break down every little piece and then show the screens and all the finished, polished, publishable app. It's going to be more about the mechanics. How does that one piece of the game work? And then from there, you can put on your own scenes. You can do your own polish, and then you can put it out into the store. So we just want to hit just the core stuff. So Barry Swan is joining us today as well. Look at that, Barry. You are in full HD color. Yeah, what is that? Is that like a real background? What are you doing there?
Well, I'm with my colleague in Norway, and if you can see, he's almost as Lego mad as I am. So,
I know, it looked like I thought you had a cityscape in the background. Now I just see it's all Legos. That's pretty great. Well, thanks for joining us. Yeah. What do you guys do? What are you doing there on your travels?
Well, looking out over the rain at the moment. I mean, there's not a lot to do. Just catching up. It's just good to visit and see him, and I get to see my family and do some other stuff. Visit some events in other countries. It's all good.
Okay, so nothing particularly work related, but and that's the kind of the laptop lifestyle, right? You can take your work anywhere you want with you.
Well, actually, I came to pick up a new laptop. This is what I'm working on. As Lurg pointed out, I've got a webcam now. It's amazing, the technology these days.
Yeah.
So, I got a question for you, Barry. You work mobily on your laptop. How does that work out for you as far as like ergonomics, and do you feel like that constrains you in any way?
Well, what I was doing before is I would work on a Mac, on a desktop, and then I would travel on the PC laptop. And actually, I must admit, I don't like doing Corona on a PC laptop, so that was causing me problems. just, keyboard shortcuts are different, things are different. But I'm having to reevaluate that now because this laptop in particular, I mean, it's a MacBook Pro, so it's nice, but it's got a Norwegian keyboard.
Oh my goodness.
And that, I've dealt with various Spanish ones in the past, but this is just a nightmare. And it's got some really bizarre keyboards, and this is obviously an Apple choice. So like all of the brackets, I've got 8 and 9, Shift 8 and 9 for open and close brackets. It's Alt 8 and 9 for square brackets, and it's Alt Shift 8 and 9 for squiggly brackets.
Oh yeah, I can't deal with that.
That makes doing JSON and tables and stuff a bit of a pain. So expect typing mistakes in the chat window.
That's a good early excuse. You can use it for blog posts too.
It's all a punctuation. It's horrible. But apart from that, it's not too bad. I mean, the idea of traveling around, I'm not the kind of person that is happy sitting down and, let's say, working an hour in an airport or something. I like to be comfortable when I work. But a laptop is actually fine, really.
I tend to just pull the laptop out and work wherever I am. So
yeah,
I have
because I'm so trained to use 2 monitors and the whole thing.
Yeah. You have a special configuration, though, Ed.
Oh, yeah, special.
Special. We should do that. We should do an office series where everybody takes a picture of their workspace.
Everybody likes to do that. Yeah,
I love those things.
We saw one of those.
Yeah, I love those things.
I just plug my MacBook into a big monitor and use a separate keyboard and mouse, and then I can grab the laptop when I need to leave. But if not, I got a desktop set up.
Yeah. I tell you what, I don't know if you guys have seen the Surface 3s. Those are pretty interesting looking. Not nearly as expensive as the Surface Pro or Surface 3 Pro 3 or whatever. $500 starting at.
You run Corona on
Full PC. Yeah, it's a full PC. So I mean, you can run everything on. Yeah. The early days of Surface were, they had RT and all those other business, but now it's a full computer. Especially 3 just came out, and it's running Windows 8.1, and they said, when Windows 10 comes out, everybody will get a free upgrade. So,
I mean, they're comparing that to the MacBook, I think, aren't they?
They're really going head to head with that and trying to do something there, and it's a very compelling argument because you can do a lot of things on it that you can't do on the MacBook. Now, I have a MacBook Air and I love it, and I won't trade it in for anything. But the Surface definitely has my attention because you can draw on it, you can do a lot of things on it. So
yeah, I've been looking at it too.
Yeah.
Just I don't know.
And especially for $500, I mean that's you can put that in your bag next to whatever else you have. So.
And next to whatever else I have. Let's see here.
Right, and and it's only and it's actually lighter than I think it's lighter than the MacBook Air. So in terms of portability, it's kind of interesting. Anyway, so thanks for everybody for being here. So before we get into today's topic, let's talk about May's Corona Geek games. So I don't know if you guys have been keeping score, but Jason Schroeder, who has joined us on the call here, is really knocking it out of the park. He has already posted a score of 202. So we're playing Boom Dot, which is a great sort of competitive score game. I haven't even played it yet. Ed, what is it? You recommended it.
Yeah.
I was gonna kind of cuff it, but I haven't even played it yet. I don't even know.
It's a very simple game, basically a one-touch game where you got a dot on the screen, and you touch the screen, it shoots the dot to the top. If it hits the top of the screen, you're dead. Round over. What you're trying to do is hit another dot that's moving back and forth, and keep doing that. And it's got different motions, and you've got like different goals as you go along, and you get distracted by that. That's what always happens with me. I'm trying to get one of the stupid goals and not paying attention to my score. And then I, mess up. But 200, man, you got to have patience from oh, I see. You double yourself, and then you can do it.
That's what he's cloned himself.
Did I
Jason,
show up?
how long
did I
have you
show up
played?
twice?
Yeah, you showed up twice. That's cool.
Am I still showing up twice, or?
On this end, yeah.
Oh, jeez.
It'll go away.
That's
So 202. That's some serious And it's not just the 202. I mean,
It's
if you
like
look at
embarrassingly evident that I went through a few hours of getting slightly addicted to it this weekend.
2 hours?
yeah, because if you look at the
kids have gone
timeline,
to sleep. The kids have gone to sleep, and
Oh, I know. You
One so far.
you force your kids to play for you.
that's what it is. That's what it is. He's got them playing. They all have iPads, and they're just.
I'm gonna have to get all zen now. Hey, what are you playing on? Are you playing on
I play it on an iPad, and I will say, I think it gives you a bit of an advantage because it's the same play field, but everything's a little bit bigger, and the key to the higher scores is chaining together the perfect hits, which is like
you gotta
slamming
change
it
it
right
the
up.
perfect hits, which is
And that's what, honestly, that's what became addicting because it suddenly becomes, it's very, I have to say, playing it, and it's the same guys who did Zigzag Boom from a couple of months ago, which was similarly addictive, and which I actually paid to unlock the ads, just because I thought, this was sort of addictive, so I got into it. These guys deserve my 99 cents. And
you could win $25, which would be $24 in your pocket.
Check it out.
No ads.
So it's got me thinking. It became so fun. It's got me thinking like I should challenge myself to come up with a little casual one-touch game and throw it, because if it's done well, it's simple. I think anybody on this panel, could play with it and go, I could make that in a weekend. I could, to make it polished and to come up with the hundreds of achievements that they have and stuff. That takes a little bit of time, but the mechanics out are very simple to implement. But it's well done, and it triggers that little addictive chemical in your brain that just sort of keeps you going. Well, one more. Okay, one more.
That's the latter part you said. The core mechanic, very basic, but the way that they added a little bit of extra, like the chaining concept and the different, like the problem I have, which is all the different challenges. Play for 45 seconds, do a thing with it, whatever. I'm like, okay, I'm supposed to focus on my score. What?
And one thing I think they do really well that gives it some longevity, that keeps it from being completely stale, is after you cross maybe the 100-point threshold, it changes. Early on, it's about not hitting that top row of spikes, right? You have to make sure you aim it. But the speed with which your little player ball approaches the bottom layer of spikes speeds up as you get further. So suddenly, the slow-moving dots that you need to hit are a boon early on, and they become the problem later on because your ball is approaching the spikes, and you
don't have time to wait.
Exactly. So I really think it's a very simple game. It's easy to implement, but I think it's really well balanced. I think it's something that you could look at as a good example of how to add longevity to something that is very simple.
And that is sage advice coming from the man who's posted 202 as the high score so far.
Oh, God, it's more embarrassing than anything.
We definitely know you have spent the time.
And it became, honestly though, I've got twin 23-month-olds, and they would go to bed, and it's like you're totally trained, and it became an awesome way to just like space out. It's just like, okay, bum 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 bum.
That's funny. Well, good job. Are you gonna continue to try to break that, or are you just gonna leave it there and see?
I'd say not, but honestly, it's fun. I think it's fun at this point. I found myself playing it on the subway. I mean, but it's got me thinking like I should stop playing these guys' games and I should come up with my own, something simple, something.
All of a sudden, I had this picture of you on the city street with a little tin cup out in front of you and your iPad, and you're like playing this game. And people are just putting coins into your kitty. That would be a great social experiment to see if people would give you money as you're sitting there playing an iPad.
Isn't that the concept of these YouTubers?
Oh, there you go. That's a YouTube video for sure.
That'll work just fine until somebody comes along and mugs you for your iPad and your money.
Yeah, well, I was going to say you might need a little bit of personal security for the people who would want to steal it from you, and B, for the people who would just be so angry that they might try to physically abuse you.
Or it can be Twitch offline.
Yeah, right. Twitch offline, unplugged. Twitch unplugged. The thing would be to see if you could compare between a fairly well-known YouTuber and yourself, and see if you could make more money doing the exact same thing they do, but just sitting on a city street. That would be fun. Well, if you guys haven't played it, go download it. The link will be in the show notes. It's called Boom Dot. course. And if you think you can go for it, 202 is the high score. If you can beat it, you get a $50 gift card at the end of the month. So I mean, it's worth trying. And like Jason said, it's fun. So if you don't have anything else to do, which apparently Jason doesn't, then
You're not unlocking the ads at that point.
I probably should. I should probably throw these guys my buck.
I feel the same way. Once I've played a game long enough, I'm like, you know what, I did. I need to pay for this.
I will say this though, and this is the difference between I like these guys because again I liked Zigzag Boom and I like this game, and it's following a freemium model and it's not shy about it. I mean, it throws up banner ads, it throws up interstitial ads, but I think unlike last month's game, which I thought was borderline slimy. I thought the moment you launch it, it shows you a start screen, and then 1 second later it throws up an interstitial, and that's timed just to get the person who's tapping the "Let me start playing" button.
Mm-hmm.
But these guys, I think, they don't show the banner ads during gameplay. They show it during the menu screens, and they throw up the interstitials, but it's not after every single game. They're getting big downloads, I think. I'm certain they're making ad revenue from it, but it never crosses the line into feeling slimy to me.
I just turned off my Wi-Fi.
That's a smart way to go.
Yeah, there you go. There's the proof. 202.
God, I'm so disappointed.
You hurt me.
He's taken away all your opportunities.
I know. I thought I had a chance. Obviously not.
All right, well, go play it. Go check it out, and let's see if we can give Jason a run for his money. So there's a few other announcements I want to get to real quick here before we jump over into today's topic. One is I want to share with you that Daniel Williams has put out a new Udemy course for game development using Corona SDK. So if you haven't had a chance to check that out, can you guys see that on the screen right now?
Can see. Yes.
Not now.
Okay. You can see or can't see?
Yes.
Yes, you can see. Okay, so go check that out. I've already purchased it. You can see here I've been through a few of the modules already. I was playing with it over the weekend. I haven't completed the course yet, but it's already good stuff. So, what's that?
How much is it?
Well, actually, it's good. I'm glad you asked that question. So, if you use the coupon code Corona Geek, you will get the course for $9. Now, I think I don't remember what it was originally. You have to go check that out, but it's definitely not $9. It's a significant discount according to Daniel. So go check it out. I got it for $12, but that was because Udemy was running a special. So and it's just the way it is. I mean, whatever they price, they throw out in front of you. So, but use Corona Geek at checkout, and you'll get the course for $9. Daniel says that he set the limit to 30 people, so there is a little bit of a time crunch there. If you think you're interested in that sort of thing, don't wait. Somebody else will snap up your discount. But it's a great little course. It's got setting up the game, creating your menus, and you're creating this whole Ninjas versus Pirates game. It even gets into, when you get down here at the bottom, it gets into some monetization, and then publishing your app, and then doing some App Store optimization. So he really kind of takes you from end to end. Here's the concept, here's the finished game, and then he goes in right from the beginning and sets up everything in the config, and then sets up your you set up your menus and stuff, and then everything is gets you right up into the App Store. So it's a great little program. So go check it out. It's over at Udemy. We'll have a link in the show notes.
Roger that.
Roger that. So let's see here. I got another couple of things here. If you haven't seen this already, we'll put a link in the show notes as well. Here's a great tutorial over at Start Apps blog, and it's on using UI button in Corona. So I'm highlighting this one in particular. I mean, I know we've talked about buttons in the past, and there's some great material out there. But one, this is a very recent post. It was put out May 5th. And the other thing is that it's very well written, very well documented, and it features screenshots with Windows screenshots, which you don't see very often. I mean, a lot of people, when they post screenshots and stuff like that, they're usually on a Mac. But here's some Windows stuff. So he's approaching it from the Windows platform. So thought that was something interesting for everybody to go take a look at. Also, let's see here. Displaying Angry Bird style trajectory points, which is basically if you've ever wanted to launch an object sort of like Angry Birds. Here is a blog post, May 7th. Yeltsin put this out, and I don't know if you've checked out his blog before. halfcode.halfdesign.wordpress.com. It is a good read, and he does a lot of great stuff, putting in animated GIFs and showing you videos, how things work, and kind of really breaks it all down. So if you're interested in any of that kind of stuff, go check out this blog post. We'll have a link in the show notes. As you can see here on the code, he's really broken it down and explained it. And I know that you would appreciate this because there's been times that we've had a hard time visualizing things, visualizing the code, and he did a really good job of doing that here in this blog post. So go check that out.
I took a quick look at that too, and it's worth noting. It's not the point of the article, but it gives an example of rolling your own gravity, because he doesn't use the built-in physics library.
Okay. Oh, that's good. That's a good point. Yeah, some of that stuff is always good. I mean, and we've had a discussion several times where people say they don't always use the physics engine for when they're developing a game, and so yeah, rolling your own gravity would be an interesting point.
Well, the problem with that from an Angry Birds type of thing is that you would likely use the physics engine to do the collisions.
Yeah.
So I'm curious if you can match up with your own rolled physics. Otherwise the trajectory wouldn't be accurate.
CP says here.
And you would use physics for when things start to collapse?
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't get into collision or any of the more advanced things, but I think just it's an interesting sort of side benefit.
Yeah.
And while you're there, I mean, check out all of his other blog posts too. He's got a lot of great stuff. You can see here on the right-hand side, it's got a lot of other in-depth examinations of how to do things. So go check that out and follow him on Twitter. You can you can keep up on all the new blog posts as they come out. All right. Speaking of keeping up on things, and Ed, I promise I'll be done here in just a minute. Fuse Powered has created a new channel over on YouTube. They don't have a short name for it yet. YouTube hasn't allowed us to create a friendly name yet. So we'll put a link in the show notes. But go over there and subscribe to the channel because they're adding lots of great stuff to the channel. There's been a new tutorial on how to add apps to the dashboard. So if you're new to Fuse Powered, you want to check it out. They have tie-ins for iOS and Marmalade and Corona SDK is coming, and Unity and all this other stuff. So regardless of what platform you're on, you can use Fuse Power to monetize your apps. And this kind of gets you started by adding your app to the App Store and getting your API key and all that kind of stuff like that. And there's going to be more and more of these videos coming out as time goes by. Another good one is the game analysis of Mr. Jump. I don't know if you guys have seen this one, but Evan P. over up in Canada, put this together and does a great job of breaking down the mechanics of the game, how the monetization works, and then making some recommendations of how maybe they might be able to increase their revenue just by making some changes. So if you're interested in the revenue side of the house, understanding how things work and what opportunities are available, go check this out. It's a great watch as well. And then if you're not already subscribed to the blog over on Fuse Powered, definitely recommend it. A lot of the articles there are not going to necessarily be Corona specific. They're going to be more generalized monetization stuff but it's a good place to kind of get in and understand the monetization aspects of app promotion, app development. So one of the recent articles was an introduction to push notifications, which is kind of isn't necessarily, again, the implementation of push notifications, but why you might want to use them and how they can be used to re-engage your audience. Because it's not just about building the game and trying to monetize it, but also how do you get those re-engage a player once they've kind of forgotten about your game. So that's a good read. Also, there's a new podcast out from Fuse Powered, which is already in the iTunes library that you can find. We'll put a link in the show notes. The very first episode, they did an interview with the developers of Tadpole Tap, and that was a good discussion as well because they talked about how they approached the game design and how they looked at monetization and all that kind of stuff like that. And they talked with Giz, who is the community manager at Outer Minds, and they talked about their app launch and how they got PewDiePie, who is hugely popular on YouTube, to play their game and all that kind of stuff like that. So that's a great read as well, or listen rather. And then there's also a blog entry over here on the 5 metrics every game should track. So if you're kind of into stats, which we all should be these days, this is a good read as well. So there's lots of great stuff over on the blog. Another blog post about the beginner's guide to player segmentation. Fuse Power is all about not only just delivering ads, but also kind of breaking up players into categories and being able to figure out, okay, can I deliver rewarded advertisements to people? Which ones do I need to focus on? Who takes action? All that kind of stuff like that. So it's good to get connected to that kind of stuff. And if you're not already on the mailing list, most of these things, and if not all of these things that I mentioned just a moment ago, are on the mailing list. So you get that once a week, once a bi-weekly, and you can kind of keep up with everything that's going on. Okay, I think that's it. Let me look at my notes here. Yeah, I think that's it. So Ed, tell us about puzzles.
Actually, I was going to make it such a huge announcement today that I didn't get to do my announcement.
Oh, let's do that now. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll keep it short. So 2 things. One, I'll do it in the order. So a lot of people know about it. It's been around for years now. SSK for Corona, which is my personal library of this, that, and the other thing to help you write your games and apps, has languished for a long time. In fact, if you have visited my GitHub, you'll have seen for a long time that it is empty. And it used to point you to a copy that I was not maintaining. So I didn't maintain the public release of SSK for at least a year now. I'm getting ready to re-release it. Among the other things that it's going to have in it, it's going to have a brand new sampler, which I'll show you in a second. And I mentioned earlier this year, I believe, that I was going to release it and I was going to do docs. And I found that I started to write up detailed documents and remembered how much I hated writing documentation. So what I'm doing is there is going to be a cheat sheet for this, which is just what it sounds like. It's just a short review of the different features. It's a 3-page cheat sheet so far of the core features in SSK, and I know it's probably really hard to read on the screen here. You're going to have to download it and print it out. But it talks about all the major core elements, the math library, the extensions, and so on.
That really puts a fine point on it. Looking at just those 3 pages of the cheat sheet, how much work you've put into this library.
This is just the core features too. There's a bunch of features in here not documented in the cheat sheet. They are advanced features that need more than a cheat sheet to describe. But these are the base features. So the biggest feature you're going to see in here is the object builders. I've got complete replacements. Actually, I was going to show that to you. And a complete button slider library if you don't want to use the widgets library.
And you're re-releasing that, and that's going to be available when?
I'm going to re-release it today. I'm gonna do the first release today, and then it will continue to be updated. So and the way you'll know which version you've got is it comes with a sampler, so you can just download this stuff for free. And the new sampler is much nicer than the old one. Right now it only lists 43 samples. That number will grow. The sampler is organized into currently 5 categories. One, which I call the Ask Ed, and what this is a collection of all the things where I've answered questions in the forums and Slowly but surely, I will convert them over to the sampler so that people can get them all in one place and run them and examine them and see the code. Many of these will, let me just run you through the features here. So this top button, and I may change the organization of this for navigation because there's getting to be quite a few samplers or samples to go through, and this is starting to become an inefficient method of going through it. So what may end up being here is a scroll list, so you can select the individual example. Regardless, Ask Ed, Core will always be demonstrations of features that are in the library itself. Many of these will come with videos, like this one does not, but the button down here will be enabled, and if it is, you click it, it'll take you to YouTube. There'll be a little video that talks about how to use it. Almost all of them will have a details page where you can read a little bit more about that feature, what I'm trying to show you in the demo or the sample. And then of course you can run them. And this is a very simple example of a comparison. So what you see here on the top, every one of these objects was made with one line of code, whereas each of these individual objects down here were made with 1 line, 2 line, or up to 4 lines of code to do the same thing. Not that impressive. Let's move on to something a little more interesting. So there's physics example, very simple physics. This example on the left took 2 lines of SSK to produce and 9 lines of traditional Corona code on the right to get the same functionality. Still not that impressive. Interesting Newton's cradle example, done in 17 lines of code, SSK of course. And an example of one of my favorite tools, which is the collision calculator. The collision calculator is basically, it's a module for lazy people. I don't like to do the collision calculations because, you know, you do them, you get them all figured out, you do the math. The math is not hard. But then you make a change, and then you forget to update one of your calculations somewhere, and then you're like, why is this not working? Well, right, I got sick of doing that, so I wrote a little module that you just basically give names to the different kinds of colliders, like enemy bullet, and then you can use those names to set up your collisions when you generate your objects or create your objects. And to give an example, hopefully you can see this, these are 2 examples do the exact same thing. The one on the left, 14 lines, and all the collision settings are auto-calculated. This one on the right, 37 lines of traditional Corona code, and 10 lines of hand-calculated collisions that you've got to maintain as you modify this and make changes and add features. Whereas with this, you just add another collider type if you need one, change some of the associated rules on a single line of code, and you're done.
And the other thing we've had this discussion before is that you like to keep things so that they're kind of autonomous, right? So that they're independent of each other and they don't have to be interconnected. So those lines of code that you're talking about, they're tapping into modules that are kind of, I don't know, separate from the, you know, like they're separate from the inline code. Whereas the other Corona code that you're talking about is sort of inline code. Is that correct? Am I making sense?
The one, like the example that I showed you on the right, was a bunch of discrete lines of code. Now, I'm counting discrete lines, but you have to create an object. You have to you have to store it in a variable temporarily. You need to change some parameters. You know, it's just like this, all these things that you can lose track of. Whereas with SSK, it's the more you want, you just do it in one line of code. You use a little shorthand notation, that meaningful shorthand notation in the creation line. I could show you a line of code in a moment to demonstrate this, but it's just compact.
Okay.
And it all lives within. I have a complete replacement library for the Corona new image rect, sprites, everything.
I think that's one of the things I always liked about looking at your code is that it's always kind of like this logical flow. You don't get bogged down in you know the options for a button or the all of the. There's not like this block of code where it's like, okay, here's the block of code to create a button, but that's if you're reading through it, you really just want to read through and say, okay, first I initialize this, and then I create a button, and then the way that you approach it is, it seems it's much more simple to
It's still
understand.
linearly in that order, but it's
Mhm.
all in one line. What I call
Right.
one line of code. You may press return and like put it on more than one line with a comma or something.
Mhm.
But it's basically one line of code, very easy to read and go, yeah, the fill color is going to be red, the rotation is going to be 45 degrees, I'm adding a body, it's going to be a fixed rotation, or it's going to be a static body. It's all nice and compact.
Right.
So another example here, so one more core. So this another favorite example of mine. Each of these lines is one line of code with and fed into that line of code is a list of points. So basically it's a animated, it's in a loop. The list of points changes every time, and it's fed into the builder, which draws these lines. It may be a bit hard to see in this. So moving on, another feature that's going to be in here is demos. Demos will be, what I'll do is in the one that you download, the demos feature will not be there for the most part. There may be a few, and those will be free modules that you can use. But there will also be a downloadable APK for Android users, and I'm working out a system for distributing the iOS version of this, which will have many more demos. And these demos will demonstrate products of mine, solutions. For example, I have a module called Easy Positioner, which is it's a drop-in module that you just use in your code, and what it allows you to do is attach a one-liner to each object in your scene, and then you can position them with your mouse, or if you're working on the computer in the simulator, with your keyboard. Things like snapping, etc., etc. There's a bunch of just shorthand notation or short keyboard shortcuts for positioning things, and then you can get the details of like where things are and the rotation right out of this little header up here. Just because people are always looking for easy ways to position things that are like, wow, let's see, put it at 100. Nope, that's wrong. Move it up by 1 pixel. Nope, that's wrong. So don't do that anymore. You can just use this.
Is it corner aware?
Sir?
Is it corner aware, so you can offset it from the corner?
Yes, it is. It's got the option to a number of options. Yeah, to position it relative to anchor points or corners or a number of things. I'm still working out how to display this little widget here at the top to give you all that detail without getting in your way. So let's see. Okay, so that will be a bunch of modules that I'm going to be selling and giving away depending on which one it is. The next thing that I'm really excited about is what I call Game Guts. And so we've been doing this on the show here, the I Can Make That series here on the Hangout, and now we're sort of getting more into Game Guts, which is where I consider where we're not looking at the full game, we're just doing a little piece of it. So I'm also going to be doing a bunch of these that you'll be able to download and play, and then if you see that that's interesting, you'll be able to go get it for like $1 or $2 or $3 and see how it was implemented. And one of those that we're doing today is Jigsaw puzzles. So this is, we're not going to do quite this today. This is a more advanced 6-piece jigsaw, but so advanced, demonstrating another principle. And we're running out of time here. I haven't even started this. Sorry. So just, I'm also going to do breakdowns of different games that you see out there, like Ketchup's games, Don't Touch the Spikes. This is a 300-line example that shows you how to implement this, of course, using SSK. Here, I wanted to show this. I was going to make the announcement today, too. People who don't know this, and I was told it's okay to say it on the Hangout, is that the desktop version of Corona is out there. You just have to know how to run it. Now, whether or not I'll tell you how to run it, you just dig around in your installation directory, and you'll figure out how to run it. But you can run, and I'm not going to do it right now, full screen or part screen, resizable desktop apps using Corona. So you can make a desktop app with Corona on the Windows system. Now you can do it on OS X also, but it's different from the way this is implemented. So only Windows for now. I'm only talking about Windows. This is another example that I made that I'm not quite ready to release that shows a new kind of puzzle. So what I've done here is it's what I call puzzles in motion. As you can see, it's a puzzle of a sort, not very complex, where you're supposed to figure out how these things are connected, and the bits and pieces in the puzzle are moving to make it more complicated to do this puzzle. So hopefully the principle is clear.
That's a cool idea.
Yeah, and that demo is just not working correctly. Let's see. And then mechanics, which is sort of like, I may collapse this into the Ask Ed stuff because it's like people ask really interesting questions, and I haven't decided what to do with them all. One we saw previously was the Lazy Man's 2.5D isometric, not really truly isometric, but this concept, right? Of how do I get this an easy layering system in here where I can get it to look like things are in front and behind. Okay, so I should probably stop talking about this, and I think that's it. Yeah, so we talked about the cheat sheet, sampler, all this stuff will be coming out today, and then I'll figure out oh yeah, if you're listening on the show and you want to get in early on the iOS release of the sampler, the one that's going to have all the good stuff in it that'll get updated over time so you can see more and more stuff, email me at roaminggamer@gmail.com and send me your email address, the one that you would use for your iTunes account, and then I will email you a invitation to download the sampler when I get it ready for your Apple device. All right, so stop with all that. Why don't we get on to today's topic?
That's exciting. Looking forward to it.
Good job.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been working on it for years, and then I just let it sit there and not get used by people, and I realized that was not a good thing to do. So,
Really great job.
Thank you. All right. So in today's Hangout, now finally, we're talking about jigsaw puzzles, and what we're going to do is I'm going to demonstrate. First of all, you'll be able to download the application that I'm showing right now, which is a complete jigsaw puzzle application, very basic, but still you can expand upon it. What you're looking at here is one piece of the template, which is actually still for sale, and I'll be taking it down shortly, but because you can now get this for free. But one piece of the pure Corona, doesn't use SSK. I wanted to give it to people as pure Corona for this Hangout puzzle. And what you've got here basically is you've got the puzzle tray, which is where you'll assemble your puzzle, and your puzzle pieces, which is where they'll go here. So let me hide the screen because I got to see the code to do this. This sample comes in a single file, well, main Lua. It's about 500 lines of code long, and it's fully documented. I won't bother you with seeing all that quite yet. And it also comes with, where is it? It comes with a guide on how to produce jigsaw puzzles, which is what I'm going to show you today is like the most basic way to do this. And when you run it and it's fully configured, basically what it does is it produces a jigsaw puzzle with 4 pieces, which you can pick up off the tray, drop onto the puzzle area, and when you get them close to where they're supposed to be, they snap into place. And when you get them all, you get a little notification that says the puzzle is solved. So before we look at how the jigsaw puzzle pieces are produced, let's talk about how the solved bit was detected. Basically, what you want to do, what I found the easiest way to do a jigsaw puzzle is to lay out the jigsaw puzzle when I'm creating the game. So the game is running, and the first thing it does is it lays out the pieces in the solved position. And it does this all in one frame so the user doesn't see it. And then what it does is each object, each display object, here's one display object, here's another one, here's another one, and here's another one. You got 4 display objects. What we do is we save the solved position, so the X and Y position of this piece, right in the object. So I call it something like, let me look it up, solved X, let me make that good and big. Solved X is the current position of the object, solves Y, current position of the object in the Y. And then what we do, so let me just step you through it here real quick without looking at all the code. Step 1, draw our puzzle area. Step 2, I draw a tray, someplace to place the puzzles before the puzzle is solved. Then place pieces. Places the puzzle pieces in their solved positions. And I should note that with 4 pieces, it's quite as simple as setting the anchor point for this piece to anchor X is 0, anchor Y is 0, and placing it in the upper left corner of the tray that we drew before that. You can simply say, give me the tray X and Y, and then subtract half the width, half the height, and you've got the first point to anchor that puzzle to or place it at. And then you place the second piece, and you make it anchor X equals 1, anchor Y equals 0, and then you calculate the upper left corner, upper right corner, and that's where you place the piece. Lower left is anchor X 0, anchor Y 1, and then lower right is anchor X 1, anchor Y 1. So you've got the starting position now, and then the next routine basically says it goes through the list of 4 and it moves them over to the tray. It shrinks them a little bit so they can fit, and it gives them a random rotation and just makes them look interesting. So at this point, you basically just grab it, and what that does is it zooms it back out to the normal size, re-rotates it, and then as you drag, it follows your finger fairly closely. And if you get it close to the solved position, what's going to occur here is when I release my finger, a piece of code will execute. It's a touch listener. The ended phase occurs, and it says, okay, the ended phase occurred. Let's see our current position. And then we'll subtract the solved position, and we'll see how long of a distance there is between where I'm at and where I'm supposed to go when I'm solved. And if you're within a certain distance, let's just take a look at it real quickly. Let me find it, sorry.
And you can tell that the code is all well documented. So do go through and read the comments to see what's going on there.
Yeah, you're probably better off, actually. I just wanted to show it's too much for me to go through in the time we've got, but it's extremely easy once you read through it, and it's very thoroughly documented. Here it is. So on the ended phase, which means we lifted our finger, it does some of the normal stuff. It releases the focus, but then it says, okay, the dx dy, which is the difference in the x and y distances, is right here. So the current position minus the solved position, x and y. And then for people who don't know this, to get the length of dx dy, which is now a vector, you simply multiply dx by dx and dy by dy, add those together, and take the square root, and that will give you the length of the vector. And I'm moving my hands like you can see me. And then, if that is less than some value that we've selected as an okay snapping distance, let's see what snap distance is. Snap distance is 15 pixels. So in other words, if this piece is less than 15 pixels away from the solved position, it will execute the next piece of code, which says, all right, close enough. Change the objects x and y to the solved x and y, and mark this piece as solved. It's in the right position. And then, once it's solved, you'll see in the listener that you're not allowed to drag it anymore. It notices that and says, oh, this piece is solved, you're not allowed to touch it. So very easy placement, pretty simple solution, but it's only for puzzle pieces, which is not very interesting to people. So I'm not going to drag you through how you make the puzzle pieces because there's a complete document that comes with this that shows you every step. It tells you the software to use. The software you're going to want to use to do this for the example is GIMP, which is free. So if you don't have it, you can download it for free. There's a link right in here, somewhere in here in the document. Here it is. And it's very simple. It's just a few steps. There is a filter that comes with GIMP that literally produces jigsaw shapes. Now it's not very sophisticated. They all look fairly similar. You can't modify it. But having done this once with GIMP, then you can say, okay, good. I know how this works basically. Then you can go out and find a pay-for plugin for your art tool of choice, and there's many of them out there that produces varied and modifiable shapes of jigsaws. Or you can draw one if you wish, because drawing it or having it drawn for you, it's the same technique. The technique is, in a nutshell, produce your jigsaw shape. Let me find one. Sorry about that. Okay, so you produce this jigsaw shape. And then what you do is in your art program, you paste this over the top of a image that you want to convert into jigsaw pieces, and you simply select one segment of the jigsaw and you cut away the rest. And what you end up having, and this again is the simple technique of producing jigsaw pieces, what you end up having is a bunch of shapes like this that are all pre-cut jigsaw pieces. And this is the technique we're using here. Let me talk to the non-pre-cut technique. Interestingly, let me bring it up again here. It's actually in my...
So the fact that they're interlocked with each other is really the illusion.
Yeah, it's completely an illusion. This is one of the things that people stumble over, is they think there's some kind of like magic for detecting the edge here. Absolutely. If you had complete access to the OpenGL pipeline, maybe you could do that. But what we're talking about is cheating. Either you pre-calculate the position that this is supposed to go in, and then that's your solve position, or you do some fancy math subsequently to figure out what the solve position is. I prefer the cheating method, the solve it in advance and then just check to see if it's right afterwards. However, let me take you on a tour here of the other way to do this. Let me find it really fast. Where are you? Okay, so what if we wanted to do a 6-piece jigsaw puzzle? What I've found so far, and I'm not 100% sure this will work in all cases, is what you can do instead of pre-cutting your pieces is you can pre-cut the jigsaw into masks. So you produce a legal mask. By the definition, what Corona accepts is a mask. So this is a mask for the upper left piece, the upper middle piece, upper right, so on and so forth. And then, instead of cutting the piece, you simply display the entire image and you mask off the part you want to show. And then the interesting thing here is that the solved position for every piece is the same. It's the center of the piece. Let me show you this. Where are you? There it is. So that is what you're seeing here in this demo is the 6 pieces. I've masked off this part here, but in reality, this whole piece is the part I'm dragging around. But because of the way Corona works, is by default, the part that is translucent or transparent is not clickable. So when I click here, I'm clicking on the non-transparent part, the opaque part of this puzzle, not this one, and not this one. See, all these pieces are in fact overlapping, but we've cut out the visible, non-visible portions, and it's simple then. easy to drag, easy to position. The only trick here, and this is sort of like an exercise for the listener, is you'll notice when I drag these pieces, well, in this case, not a problem because it's following my cursor exactly. I'm doing an offset calculation and moving it by the amount that I'm moving my cursor. But what if I wanted to automatically take this piece and move it over here and turn it a little bit and shrink it? Not simple, because what would happen is I'd be moving it by the center of the entire piece. I wish I could show you this example.
Yeah, because it's a big rectangle. So now now when it goes to shrink it, it's calculating based on the whole
Based
big
on
rectangle.
The center. Exactly. Yeah. So what you need to do, here's the trick. If you want to use this technique, use this technique. Use the pre-mask, generate your masks, and then mask in real time the image that you want to make into your jigsaw puzzle. So make 6 instances of the image for a 6 puzzle piece. Use 6 masks, place them all at the same position, and this is the shape you get. Then, if you want to break the puzzle apart and put them in a tray or put them somewhere, what you need to do is say, okay, I got a 6 puzzle piece. Well, basically, I'm going to move this thing by the offset of 1/3 of the width, off from the center, and 1/3 up, off from the center. So it's a little bit of math. But just calculate a position that's here, and then position it by that. The scaling is irrelevant. Well, that's not true either. There'll be a little thing that happens when you scale and you try to move. People will see it. When you scale, it changes the X and Y movement too. So I can't really describe it other than to say that you'll see something unexpected, but it has to do with the fact that you scaled it. And to fix it, just think, okay, if I scaled it down by half and I move it by 2, what does that do? Does that move it by 2? Does it move it by 4? What's going on there? The movement will be the same, but yeah, I'm not doing a good job. I wish I had finished this. Oh, well, actually, I take it back. This will be one of the things that I'll be selling as a module. So it'll be a prepackaged module. Just drop in your masks, tell it how many there are, and drop in your puzzle pieces, and then do the layout on your own. But it'll have little helpers to do the positioning. So
the thing that you were showing us before had when you had 4 pieces, that had sort of a prefab format to the pieces themselves, right? I mean, they're not special shapes. There's not like odd shapes.
Right. Yeah. These are like I said, these are the most rudimentary shapes, and they come out of GIMP. So it doesn't have a lot of options for making. The only 2 things you can do here, you can change the rows and columns in your jigsaw, and you can choose square pieces or rounded pieces. And basically, square and rounded pieces still have the same dimensions, but all they do is they put little curves.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
So, but this would be a good starter for if you wanted to create a puzzle game, and it didn't need to be.
This is a good start to understand the principle of the shape and how you generate the shapes, because that's always going to be the same. That's not true. There is one other way to do this that we talked about. We being the folks here, we exchanged some emails prior to the show, and it was brought up that there is another way to do this. You can draw the shapes manually, or not manually, but in your code, and then mask them and create dynamic masks on the fly. Very advanced technique, not something I'm going to discuss, and probably not even something that I'm going to pursue. But if you want to pursue it, the starting point for learning how to do this is going and looking at the progress meter that we talked about several times now on the show. The circular progress meter does a dynamic mask of a circle. Same principle, different shape.
And we're talking about Jason's.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yep. I should have said that. You're right. Sorry.
Yeah.
I feel bad.
I see my screen share right now, but this is Ed's. I took Ed's original puzzle template and then redid it with my own style of pieces, and you can see you can definitely add more variation to the pieces themselves. This one's not solved, but
Chris, what did you use to create the variation?
Photoshop, and then I just created. I found a piece online that was, basically just a vector piece with kind of a puzzle, and then I overlaid that, and then it's definitely complicated, but once you do it a few times, you kind of get used to it. But I just put a couple macros in Photoshop and overlaid that piece, the vector piece, and then it would select each piece real quickly, and I just export them out.
So you kind of have your own homegrown slicing macros.
But not just that, Chris. I'm going to guess is that you either have a macro or a technique for solving the home positions, the solve positions for these.
Yeah, I use something similar to what you were talking about. I build the complete puzzle first, and then each of these templates are the same. So once I punched in the numbers here, then I could just reuse them in a table or whatnot. And then to solve the puzzle, I just did like you said. I would mark the position, the centerpiece, and then I would do a little bit differently because I'm not super in math. So I would just, as it's moving, when they let it go, I'm checking a boundary around the center point. So I take that center point and then I create a virtual boundary here. And then I say, something similar like, does that fall within that boundary? If it does, then snap it into place.
Oh, so within a rectangle.
Yeah.
Rectangular boundary.
I think there's actually even a column cron or something where you can kind of create a virtual rectangle.
It's called bounds.
Yeah, bounds, exactly. And so I use that to just kind of check the distance as opposed to the square root style, and then so it's very similar, but it goes to show that my change didn't have anything to do with the code, minimally, as much as just figuring out how to output these pieces. And that's, if there was your masking idea is fantastic, and the simpler that it could be to output pieces, obviously the better. But anyways, it's funny because this was the first template I ever got just to study Corona, and here it is. It's years later.
It works.
Good job. Yeah, exactly.
And look at you now.
Hey,
yeah, let's
I did all the talking, but I wanted to ask the other guys on the show to, you guys had input on this concept.
Yeah. So Barry, what's up? I thought you had some thoughts.
Well, yeah, sticking with this particular format, there's two things that strike me. One of them good and one of them probably a potential warning. One of the things that I like about this approach is that although you're just using essentially square-based puzzle pieces, you don't have to do that. You could, some jigsaw puzzles have circular ones, and as long as you're prepared to go through whatever process you have to chop them up and store the pieces, you could have triangular piece jigsaws, hexagonal ones, squiggly, whatever. Anything will work with this, and that's something that I really like about this approach. The warning that I have, because this translates from real jigsaw puzzles, is you must be very careful when you make the pieces that they either have unique shapes, or as in every single piece is unique, or they don't look the same. So you have two pieces that are identical, but one might be filled with a design, one might be filled with, let's say, sky. Because the worst thing that can happen is you have a beautiful panoramic image of whatever scenery, and there's a big blue sky, and then you have 5 tiles all with the same shape and essentially the same color, because only one of them will fit correctly. So you either have to have every tile with unique pattern or every tile with unique shape. That's the only thing, otherwise it will get frustrating for the users.
But I like it to be frustrating for the users.
That's an in-app purchase. You can unlock that piece.
Unlocking.
Yeah, so I see what you're saying. So you've got 3 blue tiles that look all exactly alike, and you grab one and go to put it in place, and the app says, nope, sorry, that's not right. And you're like, well, how can it not be right? Because I have 2 other pieces that look just like it.
Yeah, when I built on mine, I made sure that the image, there was enough, little pieces or just a little marking, on certain shapes to kind of at least give an indicator that, it goes somewhere, and they looked, a little bit different.
But you're manually massaging your pieces, though, right, Chris?
Of course, yes. I'm
Yeah.
massaging them.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're
Physically.
very happy pieces.
Oh, yeah, they must be.
Some quiet music.
You can
Light a
make a
candle.
1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle, and then the one that gets lost in the box in real life. That's the in-app purchase that you hide until you're very nearly finished.
Oh, right. There you go. You've almost got it done.
That's a technique for making money. I love it.
Would you like to complete the puzzle? Just click here. That's hilarious. Sergey, did you have any thoughts on this?
I'm hungry.
You're hungry. Okay.
And it's all Barry's
I
fault.
wondered, you guys.
Watching, yeah. I mean, the other thing about a jigsaw puzzle is there's so many ways of expanding on it, and I think it makes, more than anything else in all of these games, it makes for a very good test project for people to practice on, because there's so many ways of expanding it, but still ending up with a complete game. There's this version from Ed, and then the next stage would be, well, not the next stage. We were talking about dynamically generating images. That's actually quite complicated, whichever way you look at it. But then there's things like having the pieces snap to each other when they're not in position. And that just involves comparing each piece against everything else in a recursive fashion, so that you can build it like a real-world jigsaw. And these are all various problems that you can add in to make it more complicated as you want and as you're learning. But even at this stage, you end up with a complete program, and I think that that's really useful.
From childhood, I remember nice jigsaw puzzles that the shapes were exactly the shapes of the objects, like dog shape, or a cake, or something, or a table, and you put them in. I haven't seen such games on App Store. Maybe I was not looking precisely enough, but it could be a nice application for someone to build. If there
Yeah,
isn't
it doesn't
any
have to be
already.
a complete jigsaw. It could just be the pieces that need to be in the right positions.
Yeah, they have that in the kids section. My daughter has
Okay.
a few of those where they.
Is anyone still in touch with, what was her name? Batgirl from the IRC channel? Because basically
Laura,
was jigsaw puzzles.
Right.
she had animated jigsaw puzzles, I think.
Yeah.
But
Which
they were shaped like normal jigsaw
I'm not
puzzles.
in direct touch with her, but she's on the Developer Exchange Facebook group. And I could, if anybody wants an invitation to, I think it's an invite only, but any member can invite any other member. So, shoot me an email.
Very cool. So, Ed, could you get to the point where you actually snap a photo with your camera, with your phone, and then have a jigsaw puzzle from that, like on the fly?
Absolutely. Using the technique that I just talked about, the one that I'm not going to give away for free, the very cheap module that I'm not quite finished polishing off, you could literally create an app, take photos, produce a number of preset puzzle masks, and then use your photos, use the masks, same technique, boom, puzzle.
Because that seems to give it a little bit of a pizzazz, right? That you're not just dealing with a prefab. You're kind of like it really seems magic then, because you're like, hey, I took that photo and now it's a puzzle, and
Right? People love those things. I'm not sure why, but I do understand.
yeah. Why do we put puzzles together to begin with? I mean, why don't we just buy a picture and put it on the wall? It's the human brain.
Yes, it is.
All right, was that it? Is that all we want to talk about?
That's it. I think we
Okay.
covered all the aspects. Oh, what are we supposed to be talking about next week? I didn't do my homework here.
Oh, I don't know. We'll announce it later in the week.
Okay, we got a list of things.
Yeah, got enough going on right now. So there you go. What you want to do next is go to the show notes and download the code. As you saw or couldn't see if you were listening to the podcast, is that it's very well documented and everything that you need is there. And if you need some advanced features, something that's not provided, go check out Ed's templates. He's got a lot of great stuff over there that you can utilize. And also be sure to check out the SSK when it comes out, the re-release or the release of. Is it the re-release?
It's a re-release.
It's the re-release of SSK. Go check that out. Because, again, if you were listening to the podcast and you didn't see on the screen, there's a cheat sheet that Ed presented. It has 3 pages worth of material on it. Single space, by the way, that demonstrates all the hard work that he's put into it. And in 10-point font, 9-point font. But yeah, lots of work there. So go check that out and give it a shot as well. All right.
Hey, Charles, one little note for folks. When they download the Jigsaw example, make sure to go into the assets folder. There are a bunch of other images that they can use that are all ready to go to make their own cut-ups so they can practice.
Okay, good
So
deal.
not just the 2 that you saw, but there's like a dozen of them.
And if you guys know of a filter or some sort of plugin or add-on that you use in Photoshop or GIMP or whatever art program that you use, let us know. We'd be glad to share that with everybody as well. Okay, I think that's it. So thanks for joining us. We'll be back here next Monday, 12 p.m. Pacific, to talk all about mobile app development using Corona SDK. Until then, have a great week and happy coding.
Cheers.